Thank you very much. I'm going to talk to you today about elections in Stanislaus County, because that's what I know. Then what we do with your vote by mail ballot after we get it, and what Canvass is. Everyone hears about Canvass. You have 30 days, what's happening. And election security. You know, we want you to feel comfortable voting, especially here in Stanislaus County. And then opportunities we always throw out to become involved. So, in January, a law took place, AB 37, that requires every county in the state of California to mail a ballot to its voters 29 days before the election. And then it also did things like extend the time for us to receive mail ballots. So it used to be 3 days, now it's 7. It provides how many drop boxes, and then we can also start processing vote by mail. So we mailed vote by mail ballots out on the 11th of this month. We started a little bit earlier. So today we are actually looking at those ballots. So the process starts way in advance. Election day is November 8th, but we're already processing. So where can you take your ballot? So say you got a ballot here in Stanislaus County. There's 3 ways for you to return it. It can be mailed to us. It's postage paid. The envelope has postage on it. It can be dropped off in one of our drop boxes. We put those out 29 days before the election. They're in grocery stores, other mail houses, at our vote centers. This one's in the library, you can see in the picture. So we try to put it in places where people will go. And then you could go to a vote center and drop off that ballot also. There's tracking for your ballot, so you know exactly where it is. At where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov, you put in your phone number, it texts you. Make sure you put in your phone number, because we get calls all the time that people got a text and it's not their ballot because there's one number off on their phone number. So, but we just got some emails today. Thank you for the text message that you received my ballot. So it works. It lets you know what's going on. So how do you cast that vote by mail ballot that you just got? Say you made a mistake on your ballot and you don't know what to do. You can fill in this little box here, mail it back to us, and we'll mail you a new ballot. But you've voted it and everything's fine, and now you want to get it back to us. So sign your name on the signature line. Before you do that, look at the envelope and make sure it's actually you. We get all the time roommates sit and vote their ballots at the table in their kitchen, and they get them backwards. And then they sign them, and your signature doesn't match because it's not your envelope. So we have a process to kind of put those together, but it's a little bit harder when it's roommates and not family members. So be sure to check that. And then finish filling that out and send it in. A vote center. So vote centers are new to Stanislaus County. It used to be we had polls and you went in and they were in your neighborhood and it was probably your neighbor working there. But now we have a vote center. You can go any place in Stanislaus County and vote at a vote center. You can go to Oakdale if you're in Oakdale. You can go to Newman or Patterson. So any place you go, they will have the ballot for your neighborhood in Stanislaus County. You can take the one you got and drop it off. You can replace it. You can vote in person. They have scanners there. You can fill out your ballot and vote in person. You can get help with our languages. We have ballots that are facsimile in Khmer, Assyrian, and Punjabi that you can use to translate your English ballot. And you can also register right then, even on election day, at one of these vote centers or update your new address. So here's the difference from polling places and vote centers. Now remember, I'm telling you about Stanislaus County. Not every county is vote centers. If you live in San Joaquin County, they still have polling locations, which means you have to go to the one in your neighborhood and you have to be able to vote there. But you can't go to just anyone because they won't have your correct ballot. But in Stanislaus County, you can go to any vote center. It's almost like a satellite office. You can re-register. You can go 10 days in advance. You can get all your languages. And we send out the languages to every vote center so that all of them are there. You can get accessibility aid. So we have 3 accessibility devices in each vote center. They're not necessarily only if you have a disability. Anyone can use them. they mark the ballot for you. So you just fill it out and it prints a ballot, and then you can run that through the scanner. You can have 2 people in a voting booth if you need assistance. And if you, say you broke your leg and you can't get out of the car, it's so hard to drive, you can go to a vote center and they have a little bell outside, you push it, someone will come out and assist you voting in your car. So vote centers open 10 days in advance. So we will be opening those on October 29th. They're open 8 to 5, except election day. They start 7 to 8. So 6 of them will be October 29th, and then November 3rd, 23 more. So Stanislaus County's required 28. We have 29. We're always looking for some place to have 30. So if you did not get a postcard or one of the sample ballot books, you can always go to our website at stanvote.com, and it will be interactive. So wherever you're at, you put in your address, it tells you where you can drop off your ballot, their hours, and it tells you where a vote center is nearest to you. So any address you're at. You could also, if you need to, do remote accessible vote by mail. This started in 2017. It was for our military voters, because sometimes we mail them a ballot and it takes so long for it to get there that they wouldn't get it. So they can go online and vote online like this. It's not actually online voting. You're just marking your ballot and then you mail it back to us. But if you can't get into a vote center, or say you're here at school, but you're registered to vote at your parents' house and it's in San Diego, you could vote on remote accessibility even for there. So you just go online, you fill out your ballot, it prints, you put it in an envelope, and you send it back. So we recommend that you use the envelope that you received from your county, because that's the easiest. If not, you can do the origami envelope online. That's what I call it. You print things and you tape them to an envelope and you mail it back, because we always have to have your signature to process your vote by mail ballot. So what do we do with them? So we sent y'all a vote by mail ballot. Everybody filled them out. There's so much things out in the news. We don't count them all or what's happening. So a vote by mail ballot, once we receive it, the first thing we do is we scan it in and we check the signature. So we have a signature comparison. The signature that we're comparing on that envelope is your most recent registration at first. So if you just went to DMV and registered, sometimes that's not going to match what you put on paper. So if you need to update that, you can re-register and do that. Once the signature has been compared and it has gone through the process, we'll open the ballot. So we have a machine that opens those envelopes, and it cuts the top and the sides, and it just pulls them open, and we have staff that just reach in and pull them out. So we don't know how you vote or what your name is anymore. And then once that's done, they have to be flattened. And people think, flattened, oh well. This is our most labor-intense thing that we do, because every piece of paper has to be flat. All the tabs off the top have to be pulled off. And so it sounds like, oh, okay, so you have 1,000 ballots. Well, for 2020, we received 178,000 ballots, and they were 4 pages each. So we flattened 178 pieces of paper times 4. So it takes a little army, and we are all down there. Managers, everybody flattens. Once they're flat, they can run through the scanner and be counted. And then that process in Stanislaus County, when we put in the count room, I looked in there and thought, well, if you're an observer or you're a public person, you can't tell what we're doing back there. So we have dual monitors that face out. So even if you're standing in our lobby, you can watch them count the ballots. Once ballots are counted, we have I'm just going to keep doing that to you guys. We have another process called adjudication. So in adjudication, what happens is we look at things like, if it says vote for 1 and you mark 2 boxes, it's going to go to adjudication. Did you mean to do that? Or was it an accident and you crossed 1 out? We'll give credit to what you intended to vote for. But if it says vote for 1 and you mark 2, we can't count either one. So keep that in mind. Whatever it says is what you have to vote for. But if you put an X through 1, we say it was the intent of the voter to vote for the one that doesn't have an X, and that's what we'll give credit to. So that's what we're doing in our adjudication process. So signature verification, what are we looking for? We verify your signature, like I said, to your most recent registration. Is your signature even on there? Because we have to have it to open the ballot. Did you spoil it? Did you mark that little box? Obviously, you're not deceased, but sometimes we do get some. Is it signed by the wrong person? Like I said, you got them backwards. Is it the wrong election? Make sure that when you vote, if you didn't vote in the last election, you kind of still have that laying around. Do not put your current envelope in your old, or your current ballot in your old envelope. We won't count it. We just put those aside, and we get a lot of them. It did arrive too late. When I say that we can accept ballots 7 days after the election, they have to be postmarked on election day. We get ballots always a couple days after the election, trays and trays of them, that people put in boxes on election night. They're not postmarked till the next day. So if you're going to mail your ballot on election day, make sure you get it to the post office early so it has a postmarked. Is there a ballot in the envelope, or is there two? Don't try and save us postage, because if you put 2 ballots in the envelope, we can't count that also. So these are laws in California. Our staff are trained by an ex-FBI agent on how to look at your signature and compare it to the one we have on file. And then we take that and we train other people also. If your signature is challenged, it goes to a manager. And what happens then, if you have another signature on file, they'll be able to see that. So especially our voters that have been voting for a long time, maybe their signature on their first registration looks more closely to their ballot this time, or maybe their handwriting has changed. So Canvas. In Canvas, we're doing a 1% manual tally. So what that means is every single batch that we put through that machine, we're going to draw a random 1% of those, and we're going to literally sit just like this and count them one at a time to make sure that that matches what the machine said. So when we get done, our tally should be the exact same as what the machine says it is. We're going to duplicate all of those remote accessible vote by mail, and UOCAVA is our military voters. They get their ballots very early, so they're just a piece of paper. Everything has to be transferred onto actual ballot paper to run through our machines. We're going to complete the process of our vote by mail. So we're checking all those signatures, and we've started today, but on election day we'll get 40 to 50,000 ballots dropped off. So during Canvas, we're processing all of those every day. And we complete an audit of every single piece of paper that we've sent everywhere. So if you go to a vote center and you ask for your ballot, they're going to print it right there. Well, we've sent them paper. So say we sent them 100 pieces of paper and they printed 50 ballots. We're going to use easy math. It's only one page, which your ballot's bigger than that. They should have 50 pieces of paper left. We're going to count that paper at our warehouse and make sure every vote center sent back the exact amount of paper. It's part of our security process to make sure everything is where it should be. If you go and register to vote on election day, it's called a conditional voter registration. You'll put that in an envelope, and we're going to also research that and make sure that it wasn't counted at a different county and you are eligible to vote before we process those. So we switched to vote centers in 2020, and what it did for Stanislaus County is it made it faster for us to do the process. In December of 2016, we finished 1 day before those 30-day deadline, so 29 days to process the election. In November of 2018, we finished 6 days before that deadline. In November of 2020, with our biggest election we've ever had, we were finished a full 10 days before the election. So we finished it in about 12 days. So processing ballots starting this early and having vote centers where they're checking on everything has speeded up the process. And that way, our candidates in Stanislaus County, they know who won way in advance. So security, we get a lot of calls. Is everything secure? What are you doing about security? So this little box right here, this paper box, that used to be what everybody put their vote by mail ballot in at a poll. So now we have these metal boxes with 3 locks on the front, and they are chained to something. If you go to your grocery store, they either have kindly put one of these in for us, or it's chained to a pole. It's chained to something permanent in the building it's in. So a lot of people were nice enough to allow us to put those in their walls. So our interior boxes are these, and then our exterior box are these, and we have 3 of those out around our county. There's one in Oakdale, there's one in Salida at the library, and one in front of our office. So when our ballot collectors go out and pick up those ballots, they're in teams of 2. Whenever a ballot is voted, we always have 2 people with it. That way, there's always that, watching out for each other kind of thing. They're trained on how to do the custody of those ballots. They take an oath on how to retrieve a ballot, and they wear these orange vests so that if you see somebody out at a box, you know that they belong to our office and they're not just tampering with it. They also pick up more frequently than code. There's laws that tell us how many days to pick up, and right now it's 96 hours. Well, we just pick up every other day because our boxes get really full at some of our grocery stores, and so we just go every other day and pick up ballots. The faster we get them to the office, the faster we can process them for our voters. So ballot boxes, though, they're not up there. They close at 8 o'clock on election night, just like the vote centers. So at 8 o'clock on election night, we send out enough teams that they can lock up all those boxes so that you can't drop off your ballot. And then they pick up the ones that are in there. So 8 o'clock is the last time to put it in a drop box or at a vote center. So the ballot box chain of custody, when they go to the ballot box, they will break that blue seal. They have the keys to the 3 locks, and only our staff has those. And then they pull out the black bag. These are inside there. They zip it up and put a seal on it and put that on their form and bring it to the office. And then they'll seal back up that lock and lock up all the locks. They put another bag in, and then they bring it in. We compare the seal on the black bag with the seal number on their form, and not until everything matches do we open that seal and we start processing those ballots. We also keep track of the number of vote-by-mail ballots out of each box. And the reason we do that is this a good location for those? If we get 10 ballots in one box, then no one's going there. We need to find a better spot. So once they're at our office, and this was 2020, it got crazy, then we'll do the same process I said before. We'll scan them, signature verification, open, flatten, scan, and adjudicate. It's, I call it Groundhog Day, because we do the same thing every day from now until probably a week after the election with all the ballots. So at our vote centers, so again, these little brown boxes that you put your vote by mail ballot in, that's how everything got to a poll. So now we have vote centers, everything goes out in these cages that lock. So our cages are security cages that lock. And what we did in Stanislaus County is we bought 3 different kinds of cages, and then we tried to break into them. That way we would know that you couldn't break into them. Some of them you could, and so we sent those back and we kept the ones that we could not break into. So every night at a vote center, all the ballot paper is removed from all the machines. It's counted, it's kept a log, but it's locked up every night. IT equipment is locked up every night, and the scanner that's out there can be put on a mode where it stops scanning, locked up, and then put in a cage. So it has more than one lock on it, and it has a seal. So at our office, our security is, we have a bank vault. So we are an old bank, and we have a vault that we actually put your ballots in when we're not processing them. So they want to give me a bigger building, and I'm like, well, how about if you just move the other people in this building, because I want to keep a bank vault, because how cool. So we also have a second door on that vault, so we keep it open during the day so we can get ballots in and out. But 2 people have to go in together, never one person in the vault. No black or blue pins. And then ballots are not ever left unattended once they're pulled out of there. So if you pull a rack of ballots out, there always has to be 2 people with it, somebody watching it. Ballots are processed in open areas. We don't take them in offices. They don't take them in cubicles. It's all open to the public. So if you come in and are looking at the counter, you can see almost everything happening in our office. So we have, you can help us. We have part-time seasonal positions. They work during an election, 2 months before, 2 months after. They're paid a salary. They go through a background check at the county. They have to pass the background check, and then they're allowed to work at vote centers, look up voter registration. They might work in the office. They might work at the warehouse. So we have those. Or we have volunteer positions where you crowd control and help people at the vote centers with the equipment for accessibility. Questions? You're all quiet.
God, I have so many questions, but I guess the simplest one is in the adjudication process. If I'm always afraid, right? We're always afraid once we send that ballot off that it's going to get rejected and we won't know about it. Will we be notified if our ballots are rejected?
No, so we don't know who you are anymore. Okay. So once your ballot is taken out of the envelope, we no longer know it's you. Voting in the United States is supposed to be a private thing so that people don't know how you voted. So once we take it out of there, we don't know who you are. Once we say that your signature is good, we're counting your ballot. So once that happens. Now, adjudication, I should have mentioned, there's always 2 people at each computer. Like you saw on the screen, 2 people sitting there. We don't allow one person to make the decision that you wanted this vote because you crossed out this one. 2 people have to decide on that. If they can't decide, they lock it, and only managers look at those, and then we go through and figure out how the voter wanted to vote.
Beautiful presentation, thank you. Other countries have moved to electronic voting, which would seem to sort of make moot a lot of the security issues, at least this part of the security issues.
Yes.
Why haven't we moved to electronic voting? It seems that it would eliminate a lot of the issues about getting to a voting place, issues with the mail, et cetera, and perhaps even increase the number of people who vote.
So electronic voting could create hacking. It would also possibly not keep voting private, so we might know who you are if you move to electronic voting. We also do paper ballots because it keeps a paper trail. So in 2020, the little town of Waterford, their school district, put a measure on the ballot, and it lost by 3 votes. So they wanted to do a recount. Let's look at those ballots. Maybe you guys missed something. So they came into the office, and we had all those paper ballots to pull and do a recount. So they stood there, literally, while we had teams of 4, just like you saw, and people counted their ballots by hand to prove out the election. And unfortunately, they still lost by 3 votes. So, but then you have those paper ballots to be able to go back and look at. So that's why, at least in California, that we have stayed with a paper ballot like that. So it gives you something to look back on, and it also makes sure that your vote's private.
You had mentioned how in 2020 we transition from polls to vote centers, and I was wondering what the difference was.
So a poll would only be in your neighborhood. So if you lived close to campus, you would have to have a poll that was right here in this neighborhood. So we keep everything in precincts, and we have 199 of them right now. So we had like 160 polls because some of those precincts are too small. They don't have enough voters in them. So you had to go there. So if you went to the wrong location, then you weren't voting on what was in your neighborhood. So if you went out to Oakdale, you're voting on city council in Oakdale. Well, that ballot comes back to us. It was called provisional because they couldn't find you on their roster, so they knew you were in the wrong spot. And we had to go through, make sure that you were eligible to vote, and then transfer your vote to the right ballot. Now, if you're in Oakdale, Oakdale can print you the ballot for your neighborhood, so you don't have to go right to your spot. And we found a lot of people would get lost and they couldn't find their poll, so they were in the wrong spot. If you went in there and you didn't have your vote by mail ballot, they have a paper roster too, so they didn't know what you did with it. Well, especially with the new law, everybody has a ballot, so everyone would be provisional that came in if they didn't have it with them. So that's why we moved. Oh, everybody.
I just had a question about counting the ballot. So when the ballot arrives to you guys, the county, it gets opened, right?
Signature verified, then open.
Opened, and then when are they counted? The same time, or is that on election night?
As soon as I don't allow ballots to, we call it naked, but I don't allow them to be out of their envelopes and not counted. So say they open 10,000 envelopes, we're going to count 10,000 ballots that day. They have to be scanned. I don't allow them to sit around and be open like that because something could, not that my staff's going to do anything, but something could happen.
And the reason I ask is, the most recent election, there was talk about, voting dumping. Like all of a sudden the numbers changed. Like they put the numbers in, what we saw, what they didn't see. So it sounds like all that gets stored somewhere and that gets sent out. But then it wouldn't be. When does the vote actually sent out?
So
When you see on television.
Right.
When does that happen?
So I'm saying that we're processing ballots right now. We can scan all of those, but we can't pull any numbers. So we don't know what the vote is right now. We have no way of knowing. We can't do anything until election night at 8 o'clock. On election night at 8 o'clock, we pull everything that we've already counted. So if you get your vote by mail ballot in prior to the weekend before election, because we don't process on election day, everyone thinks we count everything on election day. We don't count anything on election day. That day is dedicated to voters, that's it. But everything we've counted through the Monday before is pulled right then and plugged into our system, and that's your first vote. Now, there is also controversy about, can people hack in and change your numbers? So my count room, if you come to our office, is all locked up. Only 3 of us have access to it. And there's little pods in there and they count all the votes. They're all separate. They don't attach to anything except the electricity. Then when those numbers are pulled out on their little thumb drives, they're put into a whole nother system that puts them all together. And then for us to get our information to the Secretary of State, because if you go there, they can tell you how every county turned out. We actually key that in on a totally separate computer and send it to them. Then they call us back and verify that the numbers are the same. So there's a lot of checks and balances and ways to be careful with your vote.
Steve, you had a question?
I actually have 2 questions. My first question was, there's so much discussion when regulations or bills are passed that a rationale is frequently given of voter fraud. In the last, say, 5 to 10 years, has there been any examples of voter fraud in the county?
Well, in Stanislaus County, we don't really see a lot of fraud. Every once in a while, we'll have, something where it doesn't look quite right, so we investigate it. But we don't really see that in our county. Now, that said, I don't live in bigger counties like LA. I don't know what they see. But our county, we have good little voters here. And I hope we keep it that way.
I did have a second question. There have been so many, it seems like there's been so many changes about what's being done with voting practices, say, compared today versus 2 years ago, even in our county, the way that you described it, there have been a lot of changes. If you could, is there anything that you'd like to see changed in the future that you think would be an improvement upon what we have, or do you think that we have things perfected?
So the way we vote now is actually safer than the way we used to vote. So there's always room for improvement. But we've made so many changes over the last 2 years that I kind of think will perfect what we've done. When you used to go to the little poll in your neighborhood and you signed your roster, no one checked those signatures. No, everyone's always shocked about that. So there could be fraud easier there because somebody else could sign your name. Now, when you sign that envelope, we check every one of them. So that has created more security in the election. The sending things out in a little paper box, you know, your little person carrying it in. Now we have the cages. Everything's locked up every night. But a poll was only 1 day. So, and then to drop off your vote by mail ballot, you had to either go to your poll or to our office or put it in the mail. Now we have all these options for you, but they're so secure with the way they're locked up that keeps things safe. Also, our outdoor boxes, and this is not the law, but I require them all to have a camera too, so that we can see if somebody tries to do something to them.
I'm wondering, what do you guys do with the ballots? Like once everything's counted, everything's in, what do you guys do?
So they have a permanent seal put on them, which can't be opened unless a court tells us to, and then we keep them for 22 months and they're destroyed. That's code.
Something that's really eye-opening to me is the lack of uniformity in how people vote. So the counties are very different. I remember the hanging chads, back doing how Florida vote. So how does that get decided, how counties vote, and the mechanism in which they vote?
So in California, you can buy equipment that's certified by the Secretary of State. And we had to replace our equipment in 2019. Our other equipment was too old, and they removed the certification. So there was only 2 certified at that time. So counties can pick which one out of that equipment, so that makes it so it's a little different. Things are similar, like how ballots are counted, how we check your signatures. I mean, that's all really uniform, but your ballot may look different and the way we scan it is a little different. Like we have scanners at our vote centers, but not all counties have those. It's based on your equipment and the ability to send them out. Our equipment, because at the time we had polls, and our poll workers could be 70 years old, nothing's over 50 pounds. So we can have a scanner at the vote center and it's small enough to lock up, but the other equipment, the scanner's huge. So that's kind of where it's uniform in the fact that it has to be certified by the Secretary of State, but it could be a different type of equipment. Then the law to change to a vote center says you may, not you must. So counties don't have to do it. So you have some counties, like San Joaquin, they still have polls. But for us, that was just difficult with the fact that everybody gets a ballot. And then in 2020, where with COVID, we had to open vote centers. So we had to change some of our equipment. So we didn't have enough for 160 polls anymore. So you're right, it's not uniform completely, but our process at the office is the same.
I think too, but Steve's lecture last time talked about how the Constitution says states decide time, manner, and place of elections, and then each state can make their own rules, and so that then it gets sloppy out. And then it can get messy, it seems like, afterwards, but that's why we don't have a uniform system.
Right. And you heard on the news, Dominion, and they could do this and they could do that. Well, every state could have a different type of Dominion too. Could be, we don't have Dominion in Stanislaus County, but what they have there could be a different program, a different type of machine. Just because they bought the same brand doesn't mean it's the same system either. So states all have different rules. My parents live in Kentucky. When 2020 happened, they were like, we got a ballot in the mail and we don't know what to do with it, because they never got one in the mail. They always went to a poll. So unfortunately, there's not a uniform law for all the states either. One thing I wanted to mention is this election is a midterm election. It's for your governor, it's for your Secretary of State, it's for your senator, it's for your local assembly and Senate. So in Stanislaus County, we used to be 1 congressional district, now we're 3. It's really important to vote in this election because you're voting in assembly and Senate people who are going to make laws for our state. So when you hear about a bill, AB 218, don't look it up because I don't know what it is, but that means the assembly put that bill into action. So when laws are created, they're created by our assembly. Or SB 214, that one again, I don't know. But that was the Senate Bill 214. So voting in your assembly and your Senate, they're specific to your area. So they're going to create laws that they think will affect our area. That's why this election is so important. These people are actually making the laws for your state. Also, your local people are on there. Your mayor, possibly, your city council, people like that are going to make decisions for your neighborhood, actually. When I looked back at the stats in Stanislaus County, 53% of our voters vote in a midterm election. Way more vote for president. These people actually affect your life every day. So half of the voters in Stanislaus County are deciding who's going to make the laws for our state.
For the electronic ballots, not really electronic, you said it was like for the military or people that may not be in the area. Do you have to give an excuse to be able to do that, or can anybody?
No, anybody can do it. So the remote accessible vote by mail, really all you're doing is you're marking a ballot and then you're sending it to us. So same as vote by mail. We have a lot of times, we had a person call, they were in New York. They made a mistake on their ballot, so they obviously couldn't get a new one, they're too far away. So we sent them to remote accessible vote by mail. On election night, Channel 40 was there filming away, talking to us, and the cameraman said, I forgot my ballot. And I said, we'll call Sacramento and do remote accessible vote by mail. So it's really convenient for that, but you can use it even if you're at home. I mean, here, if you couldn't find your ballot or whatever, if you just wanted to do it like that. It's not electronic though, so like your vote doesn't go electronically. Yeah, we still have to check your signature.
Just real quick, to add to your list of local elections, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the very board of this college, some of those?
Yeah,
some of those
YCCD.
seats are up, that's about as local as it gets for
Yeah.
people in the room.
That's about as affecting you as you can do.
So just wanted to point that out. But then also, clearly there's a ton of work that goes into making this a nonpartisan process. We've been hearing on the news, of course, about partisans with undemocratic intentions, either in the past or planning in the future to interfere with elections. Is there anything that's done to sort of try to, like when people apply for work is there any, I mean, are you seeing like a new wave of people coming in and trying to volunteer for elections, or is there anything you can do to ameliorate that?
Well, we don't see that. We do have to do a report, like who's a Democrat and who's a Republican at the vote centers to kind of see if we've mixed it up. In my office, we don't talk about it, but I can tell you they're all different. And if you come into the office, so say you come in and you need your ballot, Except for a presidential primary, we're not even going to look at what you're registered as. That's a whole different screen. So they can pull up your voter registration, they can see what ballot you need, and they can print that without ever looking at what your party is. So, and I tell all my friends, because I have friends that are both parties, when you come in, I don't care what party you are, you're just a voter to us. We're just going to take care of your vote. So.
I spent a lot of years running campaign in another state, running campaigns and setting up poll watchers, working the polls, working as a poll watcher and things like that. And one of the things that always impressed me was we always had people from both parties when we were counting votes. Especially the only write-in votes we had were mail-in absentee ballots. But everything was done in front of everyone, regardless. I mean, there was always people from both parties, and it was quite fair. There was no room for things to change. We all knew what the count was before we walked out the door.
Right.
But I am so impressed with the levels of security that you have set up here. It's just, there is no room for things to go.
There really isn't.
Really
We do a lot of checking. And you're right, we do have observers still from both parties. That's why I put the dual monitors up, so the observers can actually see everything happening. And I will stand with them and point out while they're doing adjudication, okay, see, they're going to pick, and they go slower so they can tell. But they're going to pick this is why, and I'll explain all that to them. And you're right, we do have both sides. We can have up to 25 observers in our little office. It gets really crowded. But they come in and watch everything from signature verification, flattening, they watch adjudication. And if you're an observer for a candidate and you're kind of not sure what to do, I'll even tell you, well, you're only seeing this at this time of day. Maybe you should come later in the day so you can see the other processes. They come and watch the canvas too, where we do the 1% manual count and the duplication. So we have lots of observers. They don't have to, but they were kind enough to call, so they'll be in Friday. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm 57 years old, and I've only missed one election voting. And I love voting because I feel like it's the only thing that a community does together. It doesn't matter what side they're on. We're all doing it. I love it. It was so exciting to go to the polls, and all these strangers are doing the same thing with me. And I love the fact that you guys are getting done 12 days prior, or in 12 days, whatever the number was, and I don't want to go back to the way we used to do it, but I feel a loss of community in the way we vote today. And has anyone from the office thought about how to bring that celebration and occasion, besides the little sticker that I put on my, chest the day that, we're supposedly voting, but I do feel that loss. I'm just wondering if anybody's thinking about that.
But you could still go vote in person and have community around you at a vote center. So even our vote centers, the ones that open 10 days, they don't get a lot of people. There's 1 or 2 voters in. They're a good training ground. But those 4 days before, on Saturday, we get quite a few voters. So you can go to a vote center still and have that camaraderie and that feeling, and you can vote in person. We have scanners at them, so you could vote your ballot and put it through a scanner.
I know, I don't do that. But I just wonder if we could replace, so if we're going to change with the times, is there a way for us to all celebrate that this is a democracy and we're voting and we're all together doing this one thing that is particular to the way we do things here? And it's just a thought, that's all.
Okay. We celebrate on the last day. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So I'm more concerned about voter participation in this election in 2024. How would you, say, for example, I have my dad has never voted, he never has. I think the only time I don't talk politics because he just doesn't understand, and he's reads a lot of really like disinformation, like where did you get that source from, who said this and who said that. But what really makes me like just hard to talk to because he doesn't get it. He doesn't really have the enough education to get, okay, this is who said this, who said that, and just like relative issue. But I asked him, when was the last time you voted? Oh, I voted, he voted when, you know, when Clinton was running for office. I'm like, dang,
Wow.
and I asked him, why don't you want to vote? Because the only people that would vote in my household is myself and my mother. Those are the only people that vote. That's it. And I asked him, why don't you want to vote? And he tells me, and I think it's dumb, but that's just how he thinks. And I'm like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, you know, oh, the elections are rigged. I'm like, who said that? Where are you getting that from? Like, how do you, like, you know, encourage someone with that type of mindset to say, you know, your vote matters, your voice matters, you have the, you know, the right and you have the privilege to actually get out and vote. You know, as you told them, other countries say that are communist or like any of you know, other countries that are like dictatorships, they don't have that choice, or you're forced to vote for someone you absolutely hate. So my question is, how do you encourage someone with that type of mindset to get out and vote and to even think your vote matters, your voice matters? How do you do that? I'm just curious.
So I try to talk as much as possible about elections, but if he has questions, they're always welcome to call our office. We'll explain the process, how we count. But things like, you can tell them stats. Like I mentioned Waterford School District. Their bond lost by 3 votes. 3 votes. Maybe you're in Waterford. Your dad could have made a difference in that. I tell about a place in Wyoming. It's not California, obviously, but still, the law's the law. Where there was a tie for their congressman. So if there's a tie in law, there's several ways you can do it. They chose to write their names on a ping pong ball and draw them out of a hat. That's how their congressman was decided. One more person voting would have made the difference instead of deciding by pulling it out of a ping pong ball. We had a little tiny district in Stanislaus County that had 2 seats up. So the first seat won by quite a few votes. The second 2, every time I did a new release, they flipped back and forth, back and forth. The person that got the second seat won by 1 vote. So 1 vote matters everywhere. 1 vote. 1 vote can make a difference.
Thank you.
I have family members that are afraid to vote because they don't want to be comfortable. Is that accurate?
Possibly.
I think that jury duty in California goes by...
It's by DMV also. They do both.
Driver's license, you're going to be called.
Yeah, it's both. They do both. They want to capture everybody, so.
I have a question. It's not necessarily with the elections process, but in leading to the elections process in regards to like the signatures that they are gathering the petitions throughout the county. Traditionally, you have to have an address, a physical address in order to sign those papers. But what if you're homeless and you're still a voter? How do you add your name to those ballot initiatives?
So you've registered somehow if you're homeless. So homeless, you could put a house where maybe you sleep on the couch or something, or you can put a corner where you stay and have a PO, send it to the general delivery mail, and then they would put that on the petition.
I have a PO box that I'm registered to, and I live in my RV out by McHenry.
So you'd have to put the area in McHenry because the law says you have to register where you lay your head, where you sleep. That's your residence, that's where you vote. That's the area you can vote in. So wherever you park most of the time would be where you would put. That law comes into play. We had a house on a farm. Half of it was in San Joaquin County, half of it was in Stanislaus, and they had to figure out where the bedroom was. So, we take these laws serious.
So I can actually sign those petitions and not...
Sure. Yeah. Just make sure you're registered there before you sign the petition.
Well, I don't have any way to get mail where I'm at, because I live in my RV.
You can do it, well, you have your P.O. box.
Yeah,
Right.
it's down here.
But you can register at an address and then have a different mailing address. So you register at where you sleep, and then you put your PO box for mail. So we'll mail your ballot to the PO box or whatever, and then but we'll send you the ballot for that area where you live.
And you said if you can go to a polling, any mail center, and they can print your ballot.
Vote center. Right.
If you lose it in the mail somewhere, you can go
Right.
get it later.
She has it.
Maybe one more question? Is there one more? No? Oh, okay, please.
Only takes one more.
Sure. Your position is an elected position. Can you talk briefly about what inspired you to run for this position and do the type of work that you're doing?
So I've worked in the office for 19 years. I've been elected for 4 now. And when our previous clerk recorder was going to retire, she came and said, "Are you interested in running for the position?" I thought, no. Absolutely not. It is not really fun to be a candidate. But you know, I did know the office, and I did know all the laws, and I did know things that could make it better, maybe. And so I thought, well, if somebody else runs, then they don't know anything, you know, they could, then I felt like I should do this. I should work for our community and make elections better and make them the best they can be. Now, things happened that caused us to do a lot of changes with COVID, but we have made it so much more secure that I'm glad I took office. So.
All right, so thank you for coming. I believe we speak English in this country and not German by one vote. So
That's true.
we have a survey, and so if you would do us a favor of doing this QR code and answering the survey. But before, please give